Hello and welcome back to our Chronological Bible Year reading plan. Today we are on day 183 and we have 2 Kings, chapters 1 through 4. Starting off 2 Kings today with chapter 1. And Moab revolted against Israel after the death of Ahab. And Ahaziah fell through the lattice of his upper room in Shomeron and was injured, and sent messengers and said to them, Go inquire of Baal-zebub, the mighty one of Ekron, if I shall recover from this injury. But a messenger of Yahuwah spoke to Eliah the Tishbite, Rise up, go up to meet the messengers of the sovereign of Shomeron, and say to them, Is it because there is no Elohim in Israel that you are going to inquire of Baal-zebub, the mighty one of Ekron? So therefore, thus said Yahuwah, You are not going to get out of the bed to which you have gone up, for you shall certainly die. And Eliah went. And the messengers returned to him, and he said to them, Why have you come back? And they said to him, A man came up to meet us, and said to us, Go, return to the sovereign who sent you, and say to him, Thus said Yahuwah, Is it because there is no Elohim in Israel that you are sending them to inquire of Baal-zebub, the mighty one of Ekron? Therefore you are not going to get out of the bed to which you have gone up, for you shall certainly die. And he said to them, What was the man like who came up to meet you and spoke to you these words? And they answered him, He was a hairy man, and wore a leather girdle around his waist. And he said, It is Eliah the Tishbite. He then sent to him a captain of 50 with his 50 men. And he went up to him, and see, he was sitting on the top of the hill. And he spoke to him, Man of Elohim, the sovereign has said, Come down. And Eliyahu answered and said to the captain of 50, And if I am a man of Elohim, let fire come down from the Shamayim, which is the heavens, and consume you and your 50 men. And fire came down from the Shamayim and consumed him and his 50. He then sent another captain of 50 with his 50 men to him. And he answered and said to him, Man of Elohim, this is what the sovereign said, Come down at once. And Eliah answered and said to them, If I am a man of Elohim, let fire come down from the Shamayim and consume you and your 50 men. And a fire of Elohim came down from the Shamayim and consumed him and his 50. And again he sent a third captain of 50 with his 50 men. And the third captain of 50 went up and came and fell on his knees before Eliyahu and pleaded with him and said to him, Man of Elohim, please let my life and the life of these 50 servants of yours be precious in your eyes. See, fire has come down from the Shamayim and burned up the first two captains of 50s with their 50s, but let my life be precious in your eyes. And the messenger of Yahuwah said to Eliyahu, Go down with him, do not be afraid of him. So he rose up and went down with him to the sovereign, and spoke to him, Thus said Yahuwah, Because you have sent messengers to inquire of Baal-zebub, the mighty one of Ekron, is it because there is no Elohim in Israel to inquire of his word? Therefore you are not going to get out of the bed to which you have gone up, for you shall certainly die. And he died, according to the word of Yahuwah which Eliyahu had spoken. And Jehoram reigned in his place in the 2nd year of Jehoram son of Jehoshaphat, sovereign of Yehudah, for he had no son. And the rest of the acts of Ahaziah which he did, are they not written in the book of the annals of the sovereigns of Israel? Chapter 2. It came to be, when Yahuwah was to take up Eliyahu to the Shamayim by a whirlwind, that Eliyahu went with Elisha from Gilgal. And Eliyahu said to Elisha, Please remain here, for Yahuwah has sent me on to Beth-el. And Elisha said, As Yahuwah lives and as your being lives, I do not leave you. And they went down to Beth-el. And the sons of the Nebiim, which is the prophets, who were at Beth-el, came out to Elisha and said to him, Do you know that Yahuwah has taken away your master from your head? And he said, I also know. Be silent. And Eliyahu said to him, Elisha, please remain here, for Yahuwah has sent me on to Jericho. And he said, As Yahuwah lives and as your being lives, I do not leave you. And they came into Jericho. And the sons of the Nebiim who were at Jericho came to Elisha and said to him, Do you know that Yahuwah has taken away your master from over you today? And he said, I also know. Be silent. And Eliyahu said to him, Please remain here, for Yahuwah has sent me on to the Jordan, which is the Jordan River. And he said, As Yahuwah lives, and as your being lives, I do not leave you. And the two of them went on. And 50 men of the sons of the Nebiim went and stood facing them at a distance, while the two of them stood by the Jordan. And Eliyahu took his mantle and rolled it up and struck the water. And it was divided this way and that, so that the two of them passed over on dry ground. And it came to be, when they had passed over, that Eliyahu said to Elisha, "Ask what I am to do for you before I am taken away from you." And Elisha said, "Please let a double portion of your spirit be upon me." And he said, "You have made it hard to ask, yet if you see me when I am taken from you, it is yours, but if not, it is not." And it came to be, as they continued on and spoke, that see, a chariot of fire with horses of fire, which separated the two of them. A chariot of fire with horses of fire, which separated the two of them. And Eliyahu went up by a whirlwind into the Shamayim. And Elisha saw it, and he cried out, my father, the chariot of Israel and its horsemen." And he saw him no more. Then he took hold of his own garments and tore them into two pieces. And he took up the mantle of Eliyahu that had fallen from him, and went back and stood by the bank of the Jordan. And he took the mantle of Eliyahu that had fallen from him, and struck the water, and said, "Where is Yahuwah Elohim of Eliyahu?" And he struck the water, and it was divided this way and that, and Elisha passed over. And when the sons of the Nebaim who were from Jericho saw him, they said, "The spirit of Eliyahu rests on Elisha." And they came to meet him, and bowed to the ground before him. And they said to him, "Look, there are 50 strong men with your servants. Please let them go and search for your master, lest the Ruah, which is a spirit of Yahuwah, has taken him up and cast him upon some mountain or into some valley." And he said, "Send no one." But they pressed upon him till he was ashamed, and he said, "Send." So they sent 50 men, and they searched for 3 days, but did not find him. And they returned to him, for he remained in Jericho, and he said to them, "Did I not say to you, do not go?" And the men of the city said to Elisha, "Look, the site of this city is good, as my master sees, but the waters are spoilt, and the land barren." And he said, "Bring me a new bowl, and put salt in it." And they brought it to him. And he went out to the source of the water, and threw salt in there, and said, "Thus said Yahuwah, I have healed this water. No longer shall death or barrenness come from it." And the waters were healed to this day, according to the word of Elisha which he spoke. And he went up from there to Beth El. And as he was going up the way, some youths came from that city and mocked him, and said to him, "Go up, bald head, go up, bald head." And he turned around and looked at them, and pronounced a curse on them in the name of Yahuwah. And 2 female bears came out of the forest, and tore to pieces 42 of the youths. And from there he went to Mount Carmel, and from there he returned to Shomron. That's wild. Chapter 3. And Jehoram, son of Ahab, began to reign over Israel at Shomron in the 18th year of Jehoshaphat, sovereign of Yehudah, and reigned 12 years. And he did evil in the eyes of Yahuwah, but not like his father and mother, for he removed the statue of Baal which his father had made. But he clung to the sins of Jeroboam, son of Nebat, who had made Israel sin. He did not turn away from them. And Mesha, sovereign of Moab, was a sheep breeder, and he paid the sovereign of Israel 100,000 lambs and the wool of 100,000 rams. And it came to be, when Ahab died, that the sovereign of Moab revolted against the sovereign of Israel. And sovereign Jehoram went out of Shomron at that time, and mustered all Israel. And he went and sent to Jehoshaphat, sovereign of Yehudah, saying, "The sovereign of Moab has revolted against me. Do you go with me to fight against Moab?" And he said, "I go up. I am as you are, my people as your people, my horses as your horses." And he said, "Which way do we go up?" And he said, "By the way of the wilderness of Edom." And the sovereign of Israel went, and the sovereign of Yehudah, and the sovereign of Edom, and went round a journey of seven days. And there was no water for the army, nor for the cattle that followed them. And the sovereign of Israel said, "What? Has Yahuwah called these 3 sovereigns to give them into the hand of Moab?" And Jehoshaphat said, "Is there no Nabi, no prophet of Yahuwah here? Then let us inquire of Yahuwah through him." One of the servants of the sovereign of Israel then answered and said, "Elisha son of Shaphat is here, who poured water out on the hands of Eliyahu." And Jehoshaphat said, "The word of Yahuwah is with him." And the sovereign of Israel and Jehoshaphat and the sovereign of Edom went down to him. And Elisha said to the sovereign of Israel, "What have I to do with you? Go unto the prophets of your father and the prophets of your mother." And the sovereign of Israel said to him, "No, for Yahuwah has called these 3 sovereigns to give them into the hand of Moab." And Elisha said, "As Yahuwah of hosts lives, before whom I stand, if it were not that I regard the presence of Jehoshaphat, sovereign of Yehudah, I would not look at you nor see you." And now bring me a harpist. And it came to be, when the harpist played, that the hand of Yahuwah came upon him. And he said, Thus said Yahuwah, make this wadi ditches. For thus said Yahuwah, you are not going to see wind nor rain. Yet that wadi is to be filled with water, so that you, your cattle, and your beasts shall drink. And this shall be but a light matter in the eyes of Yahuwah. And he shall give Moab into your hand. And you shall smite every walled city and every choice city, and shall cut down every good tree, and stop up every fountain of water, and ruin every good piece of land with stones. And it came to be in the morning, when the grain offering was offered, that see, water came by way of Edom, and the land was filled with water. And when all Moab heard that the sovereigns had come up to fight against them, all who were able to bear arms, all who were able to bear arms and older were gathered, and they stood at the border. And they rose up early in the morning, and the sun was shining on the water. And the Moabites saw the water on the other side as red as blood. And they said, This is blood. The sovereigns have indeed struck swords and have killed one another. And now Moab to the spoil. And they came to the camp of Yisrael, and Yisrael rose up and smote the Moabites, so that they fled before them. And they entered their land and smote the Moabites. And they broke down the cities, and each man threw a stone on every good piece of land and filled it. And they stopped up all the fountains of water, and cut down all the good trees, until the stones of Kir Hareseth were left. And the slingers went round and smote it. And when the sovereign of Moab saw that the battle was too strong for him, he took with him 700 men who drew swords, to break through to the sovereign of Edom, but they could not. And then took his eldest son, who would have reigned in his place, and offered him as a burnt offering upon the wall. And there was great wrath against Israel, and they left him and returned to the land. In chapter 4, a certain woman of the wives of the sons of the Nebaim cried out to Elisha, saying, Your servant, my husband, is dead, and you know that your servant revered Yahuwah, and the lender has come to take my 2 sons to be his slaves. And Elisha said to her, What should I do for you? Inform me, what do you have in the house? And she said, Your female servant has none at all in the house except a pot of oil. And he said, Go, borrow vessels from everywhere, from all your neighbors, empty vessels, do not get a few. And when you have come in, you shall shut the door behind you and your sons, then pour it into all those vessels, and put aside the filled ones. So she went from him, and shut the door behind her and her sons, who brought to her, and she poured it out. And it came to be, when the vessels were filled, that she said to her son, Bring me another vessel. But he said to her, There is not another vessel. And the oil ceased. So she went and informed the man of Elohim, and he said, Go, sell the oil and pay your debt. You and your sons live on the rest. And it came to be on a day that Elisha went to Shunem, where there was a prominent woman, and she urged him to eat some food. And it came to be, as often as he passed by, that he turned in there to eat some food. And she said to her husband, Look, I know that this is a Kadesh man, which is a holy man of Elohim, who passes by us continually. Please let us make a small upper room on the wall, and let us put a bed for him there, and a table and a chair and a lampstand. And it shall be, whenever he comes to us, let him turn in there. And it came to be on a day that he came there, and he turned into the upper room and lie down there. And he said to Gehazi his servant, Call this Shunammite woman. So he called her, and she stood before him. And he said to him, Please say to her, Look, you have gone to all this trouble for us. What is there to be done for you? Should I speak on your behalf to the sovereign or to the commander of the army? And she answered, I am dwelling among my own people. And he said, What then is to be done for her? And Gehazi answered, Well, she has no son, and her husband is old. And he said, Call her. So he called her, and she stood in the doorway. And he said, About this time next year you shall embrace a son. And she said, No, my master, man of Elohim, do not lie to your female servant. And the woman conceived and bore a son when the appointed time had come, of which Elisha had spoken to her. And the child grew, and it came to be on a day that he went out to his father to the reapers, and he said to his father, My head, my head. And he said to the servant, Take him to his mother. So he took him and brought him to his mother, and he sat on her knees till noon and died. And she went up and laid him on the bed of the man of Elohim, and shut him in, and went out. And she called to her husband, and said, Please send me one of the young men, and one of the donkeys, so that I hurry to the man of Elohim, and return. And he said, Why are you going to him today? It is neither the new moon, nor the Shabbath. And she said, It is well. And she saddled the donkey, and said to her servant, Drive and go. Do not slow down except I speak to you. Oh gosh, excuse me. And she went and came to the man. Yikes. And she went and came to the man of Elohim at Mount Carmel. And it came to be, when the man of Elohim saw her at a distance, that he said to his servant Gehazi, See the Shunammite woman. Please run now to meet her, and say to her, Is it well with you? Is it well with your husband? Is it well with the child? And she answered, It is well. And she came to the man of Elohim at the hill, and she caught him by the feet, but Gehazi came near to push her away. But the man of Elohim said, Leave her alone, for her being is bitter in her, and Yahu has hidden it from me, and has not revealed it to me. And she said, Did I ask a son of my master? Did I not say, Do not deceive me? And he said to Gehazi, Gird up your loins, and take my staff in your hand, and go. When you meet anyone, do not greet him, and when anyone greets you, do not answer him. And you shall lay my staff on the face of the child. And the mother of the child said, As Yahuwah lives, and as your being lives, I do not leave you. And he rose and followed her. And Gehazi went on ahead of them, and laid the staff on the face of the child. But there was no voice, and there was no hearing. So he went back to meet him, and reported to him, saying, The child is not awakened. And Elisha came into the house, and saw the child was dead, lying on his bed. And he went in, and shut the door behind the two of them, and prayed to Yahuwah. And he went up and lie on the child, and put his mouth on his mouth, his eyes on his eyes, and his hands on his hands, and stretched himself out on the child, and the flesh of the child became warm. And he returned and walked back and forth in the house, and went up and stretched himself out on him. And the child sneezed 7 times, and the child opened his eyes. And he called Gehazi, and said, Call this Shunammite. So he called her, and she came in to him, and he said, Pick up your son. Then she went in and fell at his feet, and bowed herself to the ground, and picked up her son, and went out. And Elisha returned to Gilgal, and the scarcity of food was in the land, and the sons of the Nebaim were sitting before him. And he said to his servant, Put on the large pot, and cook stew for the sons of the Nebaim. And one went out to the field to gather plants, and found a wild vine, and gathered wild cucumbers from it, filling the skirt of his garment, and came and sliced them into the pot of stew, though they did not know what they were. They then served it to the men to eat. And it came to be, as they were eating the stew, that they cried out and said, O man of Elohim, there is death in the pot. And they were unable to eat it. And he said, Then bring some flour. And he put it into the pot, and said, Serve it to the people to eat. And there was no evil matter in the pot. Now a man came from Baal Shalishah, and brought the man of Elohim bread of the firstfruits. 20 loaves of barley bread and newly ripened grain in his knapsack. And he said, Give it to the people to eat. And his servant said, What? Do I put this before 100 men? And he said, Give it to the people to eat. For thus said Yahuwah, Eat and have some left over. And he put it before them, and they ate and had some left over, according to the word of Yahuwah. And that concludes our reading for today. As always, I thank you for joining, and I hope you're reading along with me and reading along yourself. And peace and blessings and love to you. See you in the next one.